It's Matt from The Random Maker, and today I am going to be teaching you, well, and vicariously for a kid, to build a very simple nailed together toolbox tutorial. Now, this video is going to be a small bit different because the first half is for the adult to do prep work out of wood or plywood, and the second half is going to be how to build it. So I'm going to be building it, but I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how to build it with a kid. All right, so instead of me talking, let's get making. Let's go over what you are going to need for tools and materials with this project. Number one, you are going to need either a table saw or a skill saw to cut your dimension. You are going to need a way to cut the wood to length. Now, this can be done on a table saw, not my preferred method. I'm going to be using my miter saw. I know why. If the project is traditionally done out of plywood, I would recommend it to a degree, especially if you're doing a larger, but I like the look of wood better. That's pretty much why I'm doing this. So here you are going to need a table saw, way to cut the wood. We're going to use a miter saw and a hammer and nails. And depending how you build the handle, you can buy a piece of dowel. I'm going to show you my version of making a handle because dowel is incredibly expensive and I just didn't feel like buying it. I would recommend cutting this project in the 3 pieces I did in front of me. And the reason for that is, especially if you're newer on table saws, the longer the piece, the more awkward it is. And I just find it's a little easier to manage for people who are newer to the building of machinery and using machinery. So what I've got here is one piece that is 7 inches wide, and it is longer, but you need at least 20 inches because we need to make 2 10-inch ends with this piece right here. Next, you're gonna have a piece that is 6 inches wide. Notice 7, 6, those are the ends. Half inch, and I think you see where this is going. And this is over, but it needs to be cut at least 32 inches because I'm gonna cut 2 pieces of 16 out of this. And obviously this is longer, but I'm just showing you. And then I've got 1 extra piece. This is longer, but this is gonna be our final piece of 16. So, because we have to have 1 bottom, 2 sides, 2 ends. And then the handle, which we are gonna build. So that's pretty much how we do this. Nice and easy on this project. And yeah, so we are gonna switch over into the adult section, also known as the prep section for this project. And so, yeah, let's kick over from there. Our first step is I need to chop and cut all this wood, okay? So the first step I always do when I'm gonna cut wood and make sure it's square is I'm gonna nick all the ends off with these. So I'm gonna go grab my hearing protection, cut all the ends off, and then I'm gonna start measuring. We've knocked off an edge off each one of these pieces of wood. Now I am gonna measure. Now, one thing I'm gonna caution you against doing is, this is one piece that needs to be it's 2 pieces of 10. Please do not mark 10, 20. Reason is, you're gonna be 1/8 short on one of the pieces. So enjoy me measuring and cutting, but just always make sure you take into account the thickness of your blade. Okay, so one of the things about this project that we have to do is now, this does not look very good for a toolbox. So we're gonna cut off the ears. Now, I am going to, in a link below, have a video of 2 different ways to do this. And yeah, that's pretty much what we're gonna do here is I gotta draw a line to cut these ears off because let's be honest, square is not the most exciting toolbox. How this is gonna work is I'm gonna have 2.5 inches of material on the top, 6 inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to measure on each side 6 inches. Okay, on each side. Then I know this wood is 7. I'm gonna mark my middle at 3.5. And then half of 2.5 is 1 1/4 on each side. Ugh, sometimes math is not easy. Then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my speed square and just draw a line. You don't need a speed square. You can use a piece of straight lumber, pretty much just anything with a straight edge. Okay, there we go. And we're gonna go cut it and then we'll move on from there. We're at the point we're gonna switch over to the adult build time to the kid build section. So a couple things. Number one, safety glasses. These nails, especially finishing nails, which you are gonna need, and double the thickness of the wood, these are 1-inch finishing nails, are gonna be needed. You're also going to at least need a hammer, and also optional, since you are gonna be nailing with kids, I recommend a pair of pliers, and you're gonna see why. Okay, so what we're gonna be doing is we have 3 pieces that are the same. These are the 6-inch wide by 16 cuts, and there are 3 of them. There's only 2 on my table. You'll know why in a second. But what you have to do is one of these is going to be designated at the bottom. The next, you are going to have to nail it like this. Now, this right here is perfectly acceptable how to hammer and nail it. But I find that sometimes a little hard. So what I have done here, and the third piece, is actually I have a C-clamp right here, and I actually have one of the pieces clamped to my table. The reason for that is I can put the piece of wood on here and have a kid hammer on the table. The first step I'm going to do is I'm going to put the nails into the material first. Now, if you are a beginner when it comes to building and you want to make sure your nails are directly where they should be, what you can do is just take a piece of the wood, put it on here, just take a light pencil line, and that'll leave a mark right there. Next thing, and this is a trick, if you are, especially if you're using real wood, you're going to want to dull the ends. And all I'm doing is putting the nail on the hammer and I'm just touching the end. It helps prevent the chance of splitting. It doesn't always work, but it's just a better chance. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 3 nails in each. So this can be our side. We are going to be using the table because I don't have a second set of hands. And all I'm going to do is I'm not going to hammer through. I also want you to notice I'm just tapping, just being gentle with the wood, especially if you're working with kids. Okay, and I always like to finish them in the air right here. We can see now. And perfect. Okay, so that's how that works, nice and easy. And we're gonna do the exact same on the other side. What I am going to do is I'm gonna put the 3 nails on and do it like this. But, okay, if you're working with a kid, that can be a little dangerous to the fingers. You're gonna understand why this is in. So, one of the hardest parts with kids can be still they will hammer all different ways, especially if they're new to hammering. So what I always recommend doing is if your kid needs support and to make sure the nails are there, I just take a pair of pliers and hold the nail that way. It'll hold it and it'll go straight down. And it's just a very good trick in this point. And some people might be worried that this is going to do damage to it. Not really, because all I'm doing is I'm putting the pressure right through the wood. And now we can see this wood has bowed in a little. Kind of sucks, but you know what? Let's fix that. Pause! Well, how about this? If you like the video, do us a favor, hit the like button below. If you want to see more content from The Random Maker, we're always putting out new videos or shorts every single week. Hit the subscribe button. And if you have any comments, ideas, projects, or complaints, feel free to put them in the comments below because we are always looking for ways to make this channel a better place. Well, I think that's enough talking. Let's get back to the project. What I'm gonna be doing here is I'm actually gonna use the floor because here's the thing, this would get tall, kid, hammer on a table. So I always find some good concrete. I, as you can see, have already pre-nailed a lot of the nails. And what you wanna do is first line one corner up. And so I'm gonna line this corner up. because like I said in the last clip, these have bowed in. It happens, not a big deal. All I'm gonna do is pick one corner, this corner right here, and I'm gonna nail these two here. Okay, double check that your lines are still happy. Okay, next, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push this one nail right here, so I've got this side nice and square. Okay, next, I'm gonna push this corner up. And so this is where it doesn't, the wood usually isn't that, it's not that bad out, so it's just hold with a hammer. Okay, and then I'm going to, this one right here, we're gonna push that in a little bit. All right, so now we've got the major, and as you see, nail came out. This is the one that we had some issues with, so I'm just gonna push it out a little, straighten the nail, because this nail has to go in pretty straight or else it's gonna look wonky. And there, it straightens right up. So you're gonna enjoy a clip of me doing the exact same on the other side. Last little thing, as I am gonna do, I'll let this be available for sanding, and nails always just love to rip sandpaper apart. This step is kind of optional, but if you're just gonna paint it, you can skip it. I always like to sand before I paint, it makes it look a little nicer. So I have here a nail punch, and all this does is a piece of metal that allows you to, it puts the head of the nail below the wood so that when you sand, you're not catching the nails. So I'm just going to get all these nails under the wood. Okay, our last kind of part is to put a handle on. If you want to see how I made the hockey stick handle, there'll be a link in the comments below, and or you can use dowel. Either is. The only thing I really like about the hockey stick handle is I can cut it on a chop saw because it does give me a flat surface. You don't want to cut dowel on any type of saw because it can actually start spinning and get it out of control. You have to do it by a hand saw. Also, dowel's just expensive, so I like the hockey stick handle to embrace my Canadian heritage. So what we're gonna do, in a clip probably somewhere around here, you can see I have pre-nailed two nails in because even if you cut it perfectly, sometimes I just find they wander. Now, I'm using the marks from when I was cutting like the middle of this, and I'm just going to use the center. I marked center on the top of the hockey stick handle. I can see a center from when I was doing the ears, and I just put center on center, and I'm gonna nail these in. So I just hold it, and soon, there we go. As soon as one nail goes in, it's nice and easy. And on the other side is a lot easier. And all I'm gonna do is put the other nails in. All right, well, look what we have here. A very lovely toolbox. Super simple project. It's a favorite of mine. It's done very, very regularly with small groups of kids, but it's also a great project if you want to do it with a kid that is in your life with relatively minor tools and a very, very, very high success ratio. So the kid is always going to have fun, and that's what making is all about. Couple little notes, if you're gonna sand it, I always make sure they have a sanding block. You never wanna sand with your hand. Sometimes there can be slivers, stuff like that. It can cut through and actually cut into the hand. Always, you can just take a piece of sandpaper and wrap it around 2x4. It doesn't need to be an actual block, but it works really well. And if they are sanding, make sure you use a nail punch and a hammer and make sure those nails are underneath, because what I have seen before. If it's up and they get aggressive, which kids love working with their hands, so sanding is something they actually like for once. And I've seen kids just give themselves a little nick with it. I'd prefer, it's not harmful, but it's still just a really good idea. And I would, as the adult, always, before they sand, just take the sandpaper and get the corners, because as you're cutting and processing, that's where a lot of the slivers or anything bad's gonna happen. So if you just take that and knock off all the edges as the responsible adult, I think it's a great idea. Well, this is Matt from the Random Makers tutorial on a kid-friendly project. I hope you enjoyed the project. If you want any links below for the plans, certain parts of the project I've filmed separately, so this is a shorter video, so you can just follow along. They'll be all in the description below. And as I always like to say, until next time, let's get making.